Hello, hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 3778. Today's date is December 24, 2025. It's been almost like a night at 9:37 p.m. Sorry about these dogs. They are barking too much. Yeah, basically, I'm belong to the India. These are dogs are everywhere and they are barking so much. And unfortunately, at my home there is also dog too. Yeah, whatever. Okay, let's just jump into the question. All right, yeah. Uh, okay, question is, what if superpower faded with ages? Okay, that's a really good question. All right, first of all, what exactly is this question and why am I asking this question to myself? This is what if question. Why am I asking this question to myself? What if question is always really interested way to give the answer. It kind of like a force you to think about that reality. When I try to think about that reality, or when I try to create that reality, I'm kind of like utilizing my knowledge and information and experience that I've been through. And when I kind of like simply using those knowledge and information, it felt good. Disclaimer, the information that I'm trying to tell you is not exactly right or is not exactly wrong either. It's a raw, it's unfiltered, it's just my opinion. So do not believe in any kind of like information that I am saying, or do not seek for any kind of like information that I am saying. It's just my opinion, and opinion are subjective. Now regarding about the question says that what if superpower faded with ages? Now what exactly is this question? Now imagine a world where every people who actually born, it comes with a superpower. Okay, yeah. Like a superpower means like that someone could kind of like simply have bigger strength, someone could kind of like a run faster than sound, someone could kind of like a simply glow in a dark or whatever the superpower. Okay, yeah. So every human is actually born with a superpower. The problem is that na ki those superpower are faded with ages. Okay, yeah, faded with ages means what? Like basically is this thing na ki when you are born as a kid, you have a power, but your mentally is not your brain is not had enough to kind of like understanding the power and things like that. Basically, what I'm trying to tell you is this thing: the power that you are kind of like a feeling peak is at the age of kind of like a simply 20s. Okay, yeah. In the 20s, you are kind of like a simply feeling you have kind of like a so much amount of strength and things and that and that. And after 30, the power get kind of like a simply faded simultaneously or like a slowly and maybe kind of like a till the 50 you might lose every power. Yeah, nothing really at all. Okay, but after the 50 you will gonna live, but you might not have power and things like that. Okay, yeah. So imagine this particular world. Okay, yeah. So in this particular world, what would be happen if such thing will gonna happen, that keep people will kind of like lose the power throughout the age and things like that? Then probably what is actually happened na ki usually the people who kind of like hold the power, they also hold the kind of like a simply control of the world. Okay, yeah, or control of the community or things like that. Okay, and when things actually happen, then there is a lot of consequences happen, and those consequences are not good consequences. Now what is exactly that? What is exactly what I'm trying to tell you? Okay, yeah. So what I'm trying to tell you is this thing na ki usually is this thing, we are born and I don't know, I'm trying to, okay, I don't know, but I'm trying to tell you my point of perspective. Okay, what I kind of like experience through in my life and things like that. In my early 20s, I was like basically not that much kind of like a simply very like basically this thing na ki I don't really have any control. Yeah, I have kind of like so much power and strength and energy I could have supposed to be feel, but I am kind of like simply very worthless. I don't know, like basically I, like if I'm gonna say that ki I got my maturity, okay, at the age of 27 maturity, What's the maturity? Maturity means like that key, like probably you have to understand that key, why are you born and things and that, what exactly is this thing? Like, I don't know, it's a very hard to explain, but kind of like what I'm trying to tell you is this thing na ki at the teenage or at the 20s, you are kind of like a very much impulsive regarding about your decision, your emotions. You are bitterly vulnerable. Okay, yeah. You are not that much practical person. Now, why am I saying practical person? There is a difference between kind of like simply our decision are kind of like a based on emotions and practical. Okay, yeah. Now, emotions person means like that, like basically, I am very emotional person. So, what exactly it means? It means that na ki I took the decision regarding about emotions. Okay, yeah. And when we take the decision regarding about the emotion, that is not good thing. Example. Okay, yeah. I'm gonna kind of like provide you such an example that kind of like a feel little bit of not so good for the most of people, but I'm trying to explain. Okay, so let's just say that ki let's just say that you have a relative. Okay, yeah, and they have a kid too. Let's just say relative means like yeah, let's just take a kind of like a someone relative. Okay, yeah. Now, what is actually happened that key because of those people are relatives, okay, you are kind of like a spend time with those people and things and that and that. You have really good relation. Okay, yeah. Now, because of something happened, the relatives are die. Let's just say in the accident, both are kind of like a died. Okay, yeah. Now, when they die, they kind of like a have kid. Okay, yeah. Now, because of you spend so much time with that particular people and things and that and that and that, okay, yeah, you kind of like suddenly realize that ki I'm gonna take the responsibility of that relative's kid. Okay, I'm gonna take the responsibility of that particular kid. Okay, yeah. Now you took the decision by emotional point of perspective. Okay, yeah, you took the decision from emotional point of perspective, but is my decision actually right or wrong? Well, in this particular, I'm trying to tell you what exactly I'm gonna took the decision. Okay, let's just say that if my relatives are there and they are kind of like a die by some sort of kind of like some accident. Okay, now that kid is, let's just say that kid was almost like a 4-year-old kid who kind of like a became orphan. Okay, yeah, he doesn't really have his father, doesn't really have his mother, nothing really at all. So what kind of like assembly I would supposed to be do? Okay, yeah. First of all is that ki I am relative. Relative means like that ki I'm just kind of like assembly like basically we are not kind of like a connected by the biological point of perspective, just a kind of like assembly, let's just say a kind of like a someone that I know. Okay, yeah, probably. Okay, we're not taking a kind of like somebody relative, we are taking as a kind of like somebody as a kind of like a friend or things like that. This might be a kind of like really good. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing, your friend is kind of like a die because of accident, and their kid is kind of like a became orphan at the age of 4. Okay, yeah. So probably is this thing that 4-year-old kid does really have kind of like some sort of guardian. Okay, yeah, like his grandparents or things and that, and they will kind of like supposed to be kind of like survive and things like that. Now, why am I not taking that kid responsibility? Is this thing na ki I am kind of like a very much practical person. Okay, yeah. Practical person means what? Ki I'm thinking about every possible scenario. Let's just say this kid is 4-year-old kid. Okay, yeah. Obviously, he's very cute and things and that and that. But if I'm gonna say I'm gonna take the responsibility of that particular kid, means like that I'm gonna take the responsibility of the kind of like assembly everything regarding about what kind of like assembly things like he would gonna do the education and things and that like everything. Okay, yeah. And you gonna take the responsibility. Okay, yeah. If I have so much amount of money, if I'm able to be handle that kind of like some expenses and things like that, then in that particular position I'm gonna take the decision by emotional point of perspective. I'm gonna say I'm gonna kind of like simply handle the responsibility of that kid. Okay, yeah. If I am kind of like simply had enough to kind of like sustain money and things and that. But if I am not that kind of like a particular person who can't afford that particular kid responsibility and things like that, why would I supposed to do this thing? Like basically I'm gonna cross verify that am I able to be kind of like a particular person should supposed to be kind of like a take that responsibility or not. If I am not that kind of like a person, if I'm not kind of like able to be handle that particular person, if I'm not able to be handle that particular responsibility, then I will not gonna take the responsibility. So what I'm trying to tell you is this thing now. I kind of like somebody took the decision regarding about practical point of perspective. Okay, yeah. But there are so many people I seen, like there are so many people who kind of like took the decision from emotional point of perspective. They might gonna say no. Even if I don't really have any kind of like things, still I will gonna manage, but I will gonna take the responsibility and things like that. Now, this is not wrong. Okay, yeah. It's a kind of like a really good gesture and things like that. But probably is this thing na ki I don't know. Okay, yeah. Like in both the cases, there is not wrong. Okay, yeah. Like emotional point of perspective, you are a kind of like a particular person who kind of like take the responsibility of that kid. That is good. You kind of like consider as a really good heart and things like that. But in the long run, there is a lot of things that will happen. Life is kind of like a gives you ups and downs and things and that and that. If you have so much amount of money, then obviously you don't really have to worry about nothing really at all. Okay, yeah, you're gonna take the responsibility of that kid, everything. Okay, but if you don't really have your responsibility, then there are a lot of consequences happen. Okay, let me tell you the consequences. Okay, yeah. So let's just say this is kind of like your relative or your friend kid. Okay, yeah. And in the future, you also get married and you also have the kids too. So probably is this thing na ki this is you already have a kind of like simply two kids and this is the another kids. Then probably is this thing na we are human. Okay, and our emotions or our kind of like some effort kind of like some change according to the person who is actually okay. Like I don't know how I'm supposed to explain this thing now, but let's just say that ki like there is a kind of like a little bit differences actually happen regarding about which kind of like a person should we supposed to kind of like put the effort or kind of like put the care or things or that or that. Okay, yeah. This is actually happen when you have a little less amount of money. When you have too much amount of money, then you don't really worry about at all. When you have too much amount of money, then that is kind of like you will kind of like take care of that particular child as like your own child, right? But when you have kind of like a very low on cash, then probably you are kind of like saving that amount of money for your kid, not for your friends or your kind of like relatives kids and things like that. And I'm trying to tell you from very real point of perspective, because I seen those people, I seen those kind of like some example in my life and things and that. And there are so many people who are kind of like take the decision very emotionally. Now what I'm trying to tell you is this thing, there are so many kind of like consequences actually happen through the kind of like people who take the decision very emotionally. And I realize from whatever the life that I kind of like experience, usually the people who are kind of like simply in 20s, they took the decision from emotional point of perspective. Even I also took the decision from emotional point of perspective too. And that is somewhat something kind of like simply very much common, because of that na ki usually is this thing na ki development of our brain is not kind of like simply happened so quickly. Let me tell you the scientific point of perspective. I'm not a neurosurgeon or neuro anything at all, but I kind of like watch a lot of kind of like documentaries and things and that. Development of the brain is not actually happened by kind of like somebody since we born and kind of like our brain is kind of like a function fully 100%. No, it does not happen by that way. Okay, yeah. Our brain is kind of like somebody developed by our surrounding situations and things and that. Okay, yeah. And usually is this thing, our brain is kind of like, as I mentioned, development through surrounding situations and things. Okay, yeah. So what exactly it means? What I'm trying to tell you is this thing na ki till the age of 15 our brain is not fully developed. Literally, yeah, till the age of 15 our brain is not fully developed. Like some scientists actually kind of like mention that till the age of kind of like somebody 18 our brain is not fully developed. Okay, yeah. The fully developed brain is actually developed after the age of 20. Okay, yeah. Now after the age of 20 you are kind of like your brain is fully developed, but they are kind of like a bit more emotional because there is no practical experience. Now let me tell you one thing regarding about experience. Okay, yeah. In this particular thing, time is a very essential thing. You have to understand what is actually importance of the time. Okay, yeah. So let me tell you one thing. If let's just say that I have to be run a marathon. Okay, yeah. Now basically is this thing na ki I have to be run a marathon, and if I haven't really run the marathon, but everyone are kind of like simply running the marathon, everyone friends are kind of like running the marathon and things and that, and let's just say I decided that I should supposed to be run the marathon. Can I able to be run the marathon? Let me tell you, the marathon is usually almost like a 42 kilometer. Okay, yeah, and you have to be kind of like a run for 42 kilometer. Okay, in the marathon you can take a pause. It's not kind of like some race that you should supposed to be win. No, it's meant to be kind of like some run for 42 hour, 42 kilometer. Okay, yeah. So what I'm trying to tell you is this thing na ki let's just understand that ki experience, like sometimes na we just don't really understand how much effort really required to run 48 kilometer marathon, 48 or 42 kilometer of marathon. Okay, yeah, because we just kind of like we just kind of like think about number, but we don't really understand the effort it required. It's a very hard to explain. Okay, let me tell you one thing. Okay, if I'm kind of like lifting the dumbbell of kind of like something 2.5 kilo of dumbbell, can I able to lift that dumbbell? Yeah, I can able to lift that dumbbell. Can I able to lift 5 kilo of dumbbell? Yeah, I can able to lift the 5 kilo dumbbell. Can I able to lift 12 kilo of dumbbell? I might gonna get struggle, but I might gonna lift up 12 kilo of dumbbell. Okay, can I able to lift up 20 kilo of dumbbell? I might not. Okay, yeah. Now this is what kind of like some experience that I'm trying to tell you is because of that I already lift up those dumbbells and I know what kind of like somebody how much the dumbbells I could supposed to be lift up and things like that. Okay, yeah. These are kind of like somebody experience are kind of like somebody telling me that what is exactly my limit. Okay, what is exactly limit and what kind of like somebody those limits are kind of like somebody telling me what I could able to be do, what I could able to be not. But for those limit you have to be understand that key what is exactly you can do, like these information, and these information actually happen through time, Okay, yeah. So basically what I'm trying to tell you, what is exactly my point that I'm trying to tell you. My point that I'm trying to tell you is this thing: time is a utmost very essential thing to understand the experience of it. Okay, yeah. Let's just say that ki kind of like a some 20-year-old person or 21-year-old person, even after the brain is fully developed, that particular person kind of like went through a lot of emotional trauma or things like that. Let's just say he went through breakup. Okay, yeah. And breakup is kind of like a very painful thing. Literally, it's a very painful thing. Okay, yeah. But there is a difference happened. Like let's just say there is a particular person who at the age of kind of like let's just say 24, he actually experienced the breakup. Okay, yeah. And there is a kind of like one person at the age of 32, he also get the breakup too. Okay, yeah. Now let me clarify two example. The particular person at the age of 24 who actually have a kind of like some relationship for almost like a 2 year. Okay, yeah. Like let's just say he fall in relationship at the age of 22, and at the age of 24 he actually kind of like had a breakup. Now there is another example of at the age of 32, that particular person has a kind of like relationship for almost like a 12 year. Yeah, 12 year, and at the age of 32 he got kind of like a breakup. So in this both the scenario are kind of like a same. Now tell me which person are kind of like a feeling more pain. Which person kind of like a feel more pain? You might think that the person who at the age of 32 might gonna feel more pain, but that is completely wrong. Okay, yeah. The person who actually kind of like at the age of 22 or at the age of 24, that particular person, he gonna face lot of pain too. Much more pain. Why is that thing? Because of that key in that particular time, our kind of like a mind are not fully developed. Like it's developed, but it's not fully understanding the consequences. It's kind of like experiencing the world and things around us. Because let me tell you one thing, till the age of 15 or till the age of 20, we don't really see the world. Okay, yeah. Because till the age of 15, we are kind of like living around our home and things and that. And after the age of 20, we are kind of like experiencing regarding about how the world works and things and that and that. And obviously is this thing, early 20s are not had enough time for kind of like understand the world and things like that. But after, so that's why just kind of like people are kind of like very much things very emotionally and things like that. So that's why the person who are at the age of 24 who are kind of like experiencing a lot of pain and things and that, and he might gonna do a lot of stupid stuff in his life because of he actually failed a lot of things. He might went to the alcohol and things and that. But the particular person who at the age of 32, who already has a kind of like a 12-year of relationship, he feel the pain, but he will not gonna express those pain. He will kind of like hold that pain inside of us, and he might gonna utilize that pain for kind of like a somewhat something for right purposes, or kind of like only drive him something really much bigger. Okay, yeah, or kind of like utilizing that pain for something that he might gonna do, put a lot of efforts and things and that to kind of like make his life become better and things like that. So this is what it is. This is what kind of like things happen. So what I'm trying to tell you is this thing now. The people who are at the age of 20s, they are very much powerful in real world too. Yeah, they are very much powerful, but they are very emotionally very vulnerable. Okay, and also they don't really understand how the real world is actually happening. Okay, yeah, but after the age of 30 or after the age of 35, like specifically after the age of 30, people are actually understanding the what is actually world and how the world works, how the people works. Not every person is a right person, not every person is a wrong person. Like we understand what exactly is this thing. I don't know how do I supposed to explain this thing, but what I'm trying to tell you, I am 32. Okay, yeah, and I'm a bit more kind of like a bit more upgraded version I feel myself, since like from the kind of like if I'm trying to compare myself from 20s or kind of like somebody, yeah, early 20s or things like that, because I understand what is actually my life and things and that, what kind of like a matter to me, what is actually my time that is kind of like a matter to me, and who do I supposed to spend that time for myself or someone else or things like that. I kind of like somebody thinking about every practical point of perspective, that kind of like somebody bitterly greedy regarding about my time, that I should supposed to spend my time on myself, so that I would supposed to be make myself me but more better and things like that. I'm not taking decision by emotional point of perspective, but sometimes I have to take the decision with emotional point of perspective, because I'm the human. I have people, I have responsibility. But since I take the decision almost like a 70% I took the decision from practical point of perspective, 30% I took the decision from emotional point of perspective, because being emotional is also really essential. It kind of like a tell us that we are also kind of like being human and things like that. Okay, yeah. And okay, and regarding like basically why am I kind of like going through very off the topic and things like that, like it's not the off the topic, it's a kind of like a resonate with the question. Now question says that usually is this thing, the our kind of like assembly throughout the age, we kind of like lose the power and things like that. So probably most of the world is actually controlled by the youth. Okay, yeah, and youth are very emotionally vulnerable. Okay, now because of youth are very emotionally vulnerable, they might gonna do a lot of stupid decision regarding about everything. Like basically this thing, they might gonna say that if the kind of like a 20s people are so powerful, they might have a lot of controls. When they have a lot of controls, then probably what they will gonna do, they will kind of like do the stupid decision. Like let's just say there is a prime minister at the age of 22. He might gonna took the decision that tomorrow no one will gonna kind of like paid money for food. Tomorrow food will gonna kind of like free for everybody and things like that, because you are kind of like doing really good for kind of like a pay, giving kind of like a food for everybody. No one gonna starve and things like that. But you don't really understand how the food came. You don't really understand that what kind of like a consequences really happen and things like that. You shouldn't supposed to be kind of like import the food from another country, because if it happened, then probably it's kind of like create a chaos and things like that. It's really essential to understand that we should supposed to make food in our own country and things like that. We just have to understand the kind of like every structure, and that kind of like a structure kind of like help us to kind of like bring food. And it's not meant to be kind of like something that you have to give the food for free. If such thing will gonna happen, then value of the food will kind of like a loss, and probably there is kind of like a lot of spoil happen, or a lot of kind of like somebody the quality of the food will gonna degrade and things like that. So it is not really good thing, even if your intention was really right to kind of like do something really good thing, but the implementation was not really happened. And obviously you don't really focus on execution, because you took the decision by emotional point of perspective, because if you think that everyone's kind of like starving, so you have to give them food, and that is not the solution. Okay, yeah. So what I'm trying to tell you is this thing, if the kind of like a superpower are faded with ages, means like that the people who are youth will have control of everything regarding about who is actually controlling the country or things or that and that and that. And the people who are kind of controlling the country, they are kind of like age is almost like in 20s, and they are very emotional vulnerable. They don't really have practical experience, they don't really have anything at all, and they took the decision from emotional point of perspective, and that is kind of like a create a chaos in the community and everywhere. Even if they have power, they cannot able to utilize that power for right purposes because they don't know how they supposed to do that thing. And basically, if the older people are kind of like giving kind of like a little bit value that how do you supposed to utilize power and things like that, they were gonna say you have a kind of like a very less power because I am kind of like a more powerful because I am at the age of 22, so I'm kind of like very powerful, I'm not gonna listen at you and things, and that fuck off that old man, things like that. And this is, yeah, okay, so yeah, this has actually happened. I don't know, sometimes I just kind of like over listening things like that, but whatever, it's kind of like a really good kind of like a scenario to explain things, which is really good. Okay, sometimes these kind of like questions are trying to understand understand that how the real work actually happened, and it kind of like resonates somewhat somewhere, things like that. Whatever, this is it. I should supposed to end here, and thank you.